Well, Wheaton Christian Reformed Church was started in 1949 with some worship services here. People, again, who wanted to be part of a congregation here in the west suburbs and a community-focused congregation. And then formally organized in 1950, so that's 75 years. And went through many early stages. Hired a pastor who was also a professor here at Wheaton College, a couple other younger pastors, Reverend Gunnick, and then had two long-term pastors before myself. So George Vanderhill was here for 20 years, and then John Sherman, my predecessor, was here 22 years.
When we first organized the church, we tried to find the least expensive rent that we could. That was the Masonic Temple in Wheaton, which is still there. My brother and he would go down there on Saturday nights. My job was to pick up the beer bottles, and my brother swept the place up. And then my dad set up chairs. We did that quite a while. My dad found this lot on Harrison. He put a down payment on it.
When I was chairman of the building committee, the toilets downstairs on Sundays, when there were a lot of people, they didn't flush. And so we had an excavator come and dig up the sewer line to the street and check in different spots. And then finally they got by the street, and lo and behold, the sewer had never been connected to the city system. And so that was the problem. So we had an illegal septic field there for many years, but then it got connected and everything worked good.
It was a very closely knit congregation. We had a very formal service.
He wanted a very formal, but he also wanted to have an evangelical church. He wanted to have a Christian Reformed church with sound doctrine and catechism, and he wanted the goodness of the theology, but he didn't want any of the CRC baggage of all the fights over doctrinal trivia.
My husband and I came here in 1958. When we came, the church was growing rapidly. There were a lot of young families and big families. It wasn't unusual to have 4, 5, 6. There was even a few that had 8. We had a lot of kids in church.
My aunt was a single woman. My grandma was single. And those women were incorporated in this church as important from the beginning. And women voted here from the very beginning when it was organized, because my single aunt and my grandma was single, and they were important voices to be heard.
George Vanderhill, he was very, very strong-willed and eloquent, big voice, and in classes, a couple people said, "Oh, are you like George?" I said, "Well, probably not."
George was what I understand to be an erudite. I still have his robe in my closet that he used to wear, and very more formal, but really focused on getting the words right and having worship. I tell that every hair was in place.
He cast a big shadow. A lot of people really loved him, and a lot of people groused that he had too much control.
Each pastor brought a different emphasis, probably. I think for George Vanderhill, his passion was missions, and that's where mission emphasis got its start.
Missionaries were supported by our denomination, and so it wasn't as personal. But when we started this Mission Emphasis Week, then we were able to get to know the missionaries that we were supporting, and they were able to come into our church, and they would talk about their countries that they were from and the mission that they were doing, and so it became so much more personal.
Well, there were people who let me know early on, well, that I was no George Vanderhill. That was. But the church experienced nice, healthy growth when I came. I brought my own package of skills. My background before going into ministry had been the theater and also education. The church was excited about that. We did a lot of dramas over the years, and I was always grateful for the church basically saying, "Go for it, John. You know, we trust you that you're not going to be dumbing down the gospel or anything like that." And then we did a lot of things with biblical storytelling. Always during Lent and or Advent, we would set aside one whole service to just do biblical storytelling. We had like a cast of 6 or 8 people. Other things that struck me when we first came was the really capable lay leadership. It was an amazing church that way. I mean, you basically hear of churches, 20% of the people do 80% of the work. There's that older brick. Well, we had way more than 20% of the people who were into it and loved church work and loved being in council.
After I'd been here for about 2 years, I was on the council as a deacon. When you're on the council, you learn a lot about the operations of the church. You see a side of the church you hadn't seen before, both the good and the bad, but a lot of the good. The church is much broader, much bigger, a lot more programs, a lot more involvement than I ever realized. There was a program that goes on today called Coffee Break. I was involved in a little bit of the outreach committee.
Susan Anderson, she and Hildy and Dottie Huckinga across the street, they founded it, was it 60 years ago, 50? I don't know, a long time. We've been in existence a long time.
And my job was to try to do some of the promotion. So I found a sign maker, and we made a sign that talked about the Coffee Break program, and we posted it out where we post the signs now along Harrison. And lo and behold, people started to come.
We drove by Wheaton CRC, and there out in front was the sign for Coffee Break. I said, I don't care where else we go to church, but I'm going to Coffee Break.
I started with Coffee Break almost right away. I had been part of a Bible study before, but this was entirely different.
For some reason, growing up, I had the idea that Coffee Break involved the women writing the sermons for my dad. I don't know where the idea came from. It just made sense to me that the sermons would be written by a committee of women. I don't know where that came from.
And I remember about 3 or 4 months later, after the program was going well, one of the other members of the church came up to me and said, "Well, I hear that sign really works well, in spite of the fact that it's very tacky." So that was the compliment we got on the sign. But I didn't care because it worked well.
Outreach started at Wheaton CRC, or I should say was started by a group of churches, including Wheaton CRC, and in the early years, I believe Outreach met in the council room for their board things. Everett's sister, Henrietta, she had inherited from her husband when he died a lump sum of bucks, and she bought a couple of apartment buildings for Outreach in which unwed moms or single moms could move in and, they'd have a place to stay.
I took over the choir and started putting on things like the Christmas program, the Easter program. And we tried, I don't know if we always succeeded, we tried to sing every Sunday when there were 24 people in the choir. That wasn't too bad. We always had some very good singers in our choir.
The quality and the variety of the music at Wheaton Church is significant also. I think no matter who you are, you come, you can find traditional, you can find new stuff.
WCRC has been a big partner in ministry of the Women's Center here in Koi. By the grace of God, we are also planning to celebrate our 20th anniversary of the Women's Center. And in all of these years, WCRC has been a big part of our ministry. We are very grateful.
My late husband, Ed Everett, and I were also privileged to be on the ground floor of the New Hope Vietnamese ministry.
This church was a very big part in supporting and starting a church called New Hope Christian Reformed Church.
I think it started for Sue and me at her mom and dad's dinner table in Grand Haven, maybe back in 1990. There was an article in the Banner that described this refugee. That was Pastor Hu. The story was about how he had 3 times miraculously avoided execution in a firing squad, how he was in solitary for months, how he would detect by the sound of their legs which insects were good to eat and which ones weren't. Pastor Hu came to Calvin to study for the ministry. While he was in the ministry at Calvin, somehow he heard about a sizable population of Vietnamese in DuPage County.
We became friends with Pastor Hu right from the beginning and caught the vision that he had for what could be.
For a long, long time, ever since the church got started, Everett and Joyce would invite the New Hope congregation over in the peak of summer. I think it's always probably early August for basically a barbecue. Of all the places that I've been since I was a kid, that was the first in-ground pool that I got to swim in and witness.
I remember borrowing the World Relief van and driving to O'Hare and sitting in the parking lot waiting for the plane to land, and then this bleary-eyed, jet-lagged family with a few paper bags would get off the plane, and Pastor Hu would meet them. World Relief and Exodus would sometimes set up an apartment with donated furniture and that sort of thing. We would have in our congregation welcome packs, some staples, some kitchenware, some bedding, that sort of thing.
We started some other activities for these new immigrants, and this was tutoring at Wheaton Christian Reformed Church. So we would go there and on Monday evenings, and we would be tutoring the children while the parents were in English studies.
On some of those nights, my dad and I would come to the nursery to watch the kids and also to tutor them with their homework.
The Lord sends them, we welcome them. And sometimes it's complicated. And sometimes people come with needs. And you just take them in as family. And then you figure it out together.
Come on in. It has not been, okay, who are you and where'd you come from? And, not except to get to know, not credentialing.
Wheaton Christian Reformed Church is so much more than just a place where my family and I go on Sundays. It's become home. I mean literally a home. When I came to Wheaton to attend Wheaton College grad school program, we had to move from Grand Rapids, Michigan to Wheaton, Illinois, and my family and I needed a place to stay. Well, Wheaton CRC opened its furlough home on 915 Howard Street, which is now the ministry center, and right across the parking lot, and gave us a place to live.
So this church did not move from the city. A lot of churches in the west suburbs, they would sort of move from Cicero to Lombard or someplace. This church was begun as a community church in Wheaton, which meant that everybody was from somewhere else, and we don't have a lot of long-standing families in our congregation. Everybody came here at some point and was new, and so as a result, everybody knows what it feels like to be the outsider or to be new. And so this church has always had that kind of looking towards the doors, welcoming people in.
We've had a rich congregational life because of so many different kinds of people. I think that's made us who we are, right? It made us resilient and made us able to change and made us able to do those trips like we went to Birmingham and experience that. When you practice hospitality, real, true hospitality, it helps you to live without fear. You don't fear others and people who are different.
I struggled socially in school. I was weird. And my parents twice had to take me out of school to give me a fresh start in a new school due to the bullying I experienced. But church was a different matter. I belonged at church. It didn't really matter too much that I was weird. You made me feel like I belonged.
At church and this community of people is where I feel my most authentic self. This is where I can be, and I feel loved, and I love the people here. This is how I know God loves me and how I can love God's people.
The thing about the cadet program is that there's this special award that the counselors can give to a cadet. It is called the Black Star. And the Black Star is given to a cadet who has shown some sort of outstanding performance, some sort of exceptional leadership. And so at the same time that my parents were preparing to take me out of one school and give me a fresh start elsewhere, the cadet counselors gave me the Black Star. It was remarkable, the way that the counselors saw leadership potential in me at a time when I didn't really see it in myself. Who I am today and the trajectory of my life has a lot to do with how you treated me. You welcomed me when other spaces didn't. You saw potential in me when other spaces only saw weirdness. You showed me what is possible when the church gets serious about hospitality. And I am who I am today because of you.
People were so good to our kids. They had some struggles in school, but here they were always accepted, you know, and a lot of that fostered by the young people leaders and the Sunday school teachers that just were really into including people.
The youth, the little kids, everybody's, there's a place for everyone and a place to serve for everyone.
Not only the choir, but the church in general has always been encouraging to anybody who wanted to help in the service.
Jane Vogel started the family band. They practiced on Sunday afternoons. Any kid who played an instrument, some of them had like 6 weeks they'd played an instrument. Dan would conduct the family band. You know, Ed Bozinga and Dave Nineheis and people who'd played for years as well as fourth graders. Kids were always included.
That was, for young people, was a golden era of the church. Jane and Mary were absolutely fantastic. Gordon Anderson was very involved with the young people then too.
Jane Vogel came. She looked at me one day and she said, "Why don't we do youth group?" Okay. So we did. But I'm thinking we did it pretty differently than anybody else had ever done it, because we wrote our own material every single week of what the kids needed. You know, we knew those kids. So we'd meet every Tuesday morning, and we kept a list of every kid in the church, whether they attended youth group or not. And we'd go through the list and we'd say, what do we know about what each kid needs? What is that kid going through? What is this kid struggling with? That eventually led to our publishing materials for the denomination. But out of that grew Sunday night Bible studies, where the kids said, well, they didn't want to stop in the summertime because I wasn't teaching catechism this summer. Well, can't we have a Bible study? Sure. We had a screen porch. We can meet on the screen porch. Not rocket science. We'll meet every week in the same place so that if you miss, you'll always know where you have to be and you'll always know what time it's going to be. And we'd squish ourselves on the screen porch, and then we'd put suggestions of what Bible book to study in a hat. We'd pray over it and pick one, and that's what we studied for the whole summer. Sometimes it was Revelation. Once it was Song of Songs. They were not always easy, but Jane's seminary training really helped.
When I was called to Wheaton CRC, so I had been a church planter. We'd been very engaged in the community, and the express purpose was to help this church engage with the community. And so my first 10 years, that's what we did. We took this principle of take what you do for yourself and do it for others. And so our church picnic became our block party for the neighborhood. Our cadets took this bike tune-up badge and they said, what if we did that for the community? And so over the last 5-6 years, about 100 bikes a year, people bring their bikes, they get tuned up, and we relate to them that way. So that was the first 10 years. And then over that time, we recognized there was a need to refresh vision, especially coming out of COVID. And so we spent 2 years using the Church Renewal Lab, this organization, and the first whole year was spent listening. And then that group went away for a weekend to really kind of drill down to what we were hearing and came out with this vision, which is to drawing people deeper into relationships with God and others. And I remember when we presented that to the congregation, there was a little bit of worry, like, what are they going to do? Are they going to change where we're going? And when we said what we're going to do is really drill down on relationships, like this is the thing that we can do with God and with each other, I think there was a collective exhale from the church. Like, okay, they got it. They heard it. The history of this church has been one of relationships. And so to say that's what we're going to be about, this is what we're going to be known for, this is what we're going to do.
The ministry that has blessed me most, that one is easy, young professionals. I remember when I started coming here, I was kind of in just like a rough place in my faith, and I was thinking, I really need to get back into a church. I don't know if I'm up for like really just connecting with a lot of people right now, but I'll take it easy. And I know like Granny's church, it's very, it was very gentle going there, so I want to go see that. The first Sunday I started coming, they were presenting all the different ministries and things. So Granny like brought me over to the young professionals table, and like Dan Wynn was there.
I wanted a group to hang out with. I was feeling lonely, even though I was going to church. So I just kept asking people in their 20s for a while in the church.
I ended up with just these amazing connections with just some of the coolest people ever, and that's been just such a blessing ever since, to study the Bible and laugh with these people and have a meal. And
there are so many ways that we enrich each other's faith and have deep, meaningful spiritual conversation over dinner, and then also just laugh together. And that's, I think, something that this church does really well, is that it truly does sober-mindedly approach theology and the Word, and then also gathers in deep and intimate community that forms lasting relationships. So I'm very thankful for my time at Wheaton CRC.
This church has been a great community in maybe areas where I don't have a very consistent community. Thank you so much for just taking me in as your own.
I was really sick as a little girl, and I had encephalitis and was in the hospital, and the doctor said, I don't think she'll live. And the congregation took turns, by members of the congregation, by hours of time, to sit with me so that while I was in the hospital, my parents could get a break and I was never alone. That's what we did for each other.
I can remember, so when you come to a church, there's something called an installation service, and that at my installation service, that chair of that search committee prayed that this church might take up the baptismal vows that had been made to our daughter previously and welcome her into this community. And this church has been a welcoming place for our family.
And it has been an anchor for me, because I have made lifelong friends that have supported me through many of these different times in my life.
I've been here for a lot of years, and I love this place, and I love the people.